There are two kinds of pain in life: the pain of discipline and the pain of regret. One last minute. The other, a lifetime. Every morning you stand at the same crossroads. Do you obey your vision or your emotions? Do you move because it's time or wait until you feel like it? Motivation whispers softly, maybe later, but discipline speaks in commands now. It doesn't wait for the mood, the weather, or the applause. It moves because the mission demands it. Understand, this discipline is not punishment. It's the highest form of self-respect. It's proof that you trust your future self enough to suffer for it today. And when you act through discipline long enough, something powerful happens. The force you once had to create becomes who you are. So before we begin, make a silent promise to yourself: no more waiting, no more negotiation. From this moment on, you act, whether you feel ready or not. Because in this journey, only one truth remains. Discipline builds empires. Emotion builds excuses. Now let's begin, and I'll show you why motivation fails and how discipline takes its place. There's a reason you can feel unstoppable on Monday and defeated by Thursday. It's because motivation is built on emotion, and emotion changes like the weather. One day you wake up inspired, ready to conquer the world. The next day, you feel empty, heavy, distracted. You start searching for that same spark again, scrolling, waiting, hoping something will ignite you. But that spark rarely returns when you need it most. Motivation is a visitor. Discipline is a resident. Motivation knocks when it's convenient. Discipline stays when it's hard. The truth is, if you depend on motivation, you've already surrendered your power. You've given permission to your feelings to decide your future, and feelings are fickle. They can be powerful allies. Yes, but terrible masters. The man who wins in life isn't the one who feels inspired every morning. It's the one who acts even when he feels nothing. Because action changes chemistry. The body in motion reshapes the mind. Every time you move forward without feeling like it, you weaken the control of emotion and strengthen the control of purpose. You've heard people say, "I just need to find my motivation." No, you don't find motivation. You create it through motion. The fire doesn't start before you act. It starts because you act. That's why motivation fails so many people. They wait for the feeling before they move. But movement itself is the generator of feeling. Think about it the moment you start cleaning your space, writing the first line, or taking that first step, something inside shifts. You begin to build energy. The resistance fades. Your mood follows your motion, not the other way around. The undisciplined mind waits for the right mood. The disciplined mind moves first, then creates the mood. The man who depends on emotion is at the mercy of his circumstances. The man who depends on discipline commands them. Because discipline doesn't ask for permission, it doesn't care if you're tired, distracted, or uninspired. Discipline simply says, do it anyway. Let me tell you something most people never understand. Emotion is an indicator, not an instruction. It tells you how you feel, not what you must do. You can feel tired and still act. You can feel afraid and still lead. You can feel lazy and still move. That's the difference between mediocrity and mastery. Mediocrity waits for alignment. Mastery creates it. You'll hear people say, "I'm just not in the mood." But success doesn't care about your mood. The gym doesn't care how you feel. Your goals don't care how you feel. The future you promised yourself doesn't care how you feel. The only thing that matters is whether you showed up and did what must be done. Discipline is obedience to your own vision, not to your emotions. When you understand that, you start to separate yourself from 98% of the world. Because most people are ruled by how they feel in the moment. They chase comfort. And comfort kills greatness. Motivation is like a match. It burns bright, but it burns out fast. Discipline is like a furnace. It burns slow, steady, and forever. When you rely on motivation, you'll rise and fall with every spark. When you rely on discipline, you become unshakable. Think of it this way. Motivation is the guest that celebrates with you when life is easy. Discipline is the soldier that stands guard when life turns dark. Motivation is born in excitement. Discipline is forged in silence. Ask yourself, how many times have you started something full of passion and quit when the fire faded? A diet, a routine, a business plan, a new habit. You were motivated at the start, but when results didn't come fast enough, or when the effort felt heavy, you stopped. You didn't lose ability. You lost consistency because you built your house on the sand of emotion instead of the stone of discipline. You must understand, motivation is external. It feeds off results, praise, novelty. Discipline is internal. It feeds off purpose. It's fueled by the promise you made to yourself, even when no one's watching. Here's a truth that should shake you. The man who needs to feel good before he acts will never achieve anything great, because greatness is born in discomfort. Growth demands friction. Every act of discipline is a declaration of war against your weaker self. The greatest transformation happens when you stop asking, "Do I feel like it?" and start asking, "Does this move me toward my vision?" That question changes everything. It shifts you from emotion to execution, from chaos to command. And when you start living that way, when your actions are no longer hostage to your moods, something begins to happen. You feel stronger, clearer, freer, because you finally realize you are not your emotions. You are the commander of them. Motivation might get you started, but discipline will keep you standing. Motivation might push you for a week, but discipline will carry you for a lifetime. So stop chasing the feeling, chase the standard. You don't need to feel powerful to act powerful. You just need to act, and that action will create the feeling you were searching for. Repeat this to yourself every morning. I do not wait for motivation. I act because my purpose demands it. Write it down. Say it out loud. Make it your code. Because once you stop worshiping motivation and start mastering discipline, your life stops being reactive and starts being intentional. You don't rise by emotion, you rise by command. And that's how you begin to build the identity of someone unbreakable. Because in the end, the man who commands himself commands his destiny. Now, you know why motivation fades? But how do you build that inner command, the kind that never breaks even on your weakest days? Let's talk about that in the next chapter. Self-command, the discipline declaration. Every man fights two voices inside his head. One whispers, "You deserve a break." The other says, "You promised yourself more." The difference between the weak and the strong is not talent, not intelligence, not opportunity. It's which voice they obey. Self-command begins when you stop negotiating with weakness. It begins the moment you decide that your mind takes orders only from your vision, not your emotions. Motivation is a visitor, but self-command is a law. Once you issue it, there is no debate. Think of your mind as a soldier and your purpose as the general. The general doesn't ask the soldier how he feels before sending him into battle. He commands, and the soldier obeys. That's how your mind must operate. You must become both the general and the soldier. You issue the order, and you execute it without hesitation. Discipline is not a mood. It's a military order you give to yourself every single day. And the first rule of self-command is simple: never disobey your own orders. When you say, "I'll wake up at 6," you wake up. When you say, "I'll finish this today," you finish. Every broken promise weakens your command. Every kept promise strengthens it. Integrity with yourself is the foundation of all power. Most people treat their goals like wishes. They hope to do better. They want to improve. But there is no authority in hope. Hope is passive. Command is active. Hope waits. Command moves. Hope asks for results. Command creates them. When you start giving yourself commands and obeying them, even in the smallest things, your brain begins to understand that you are the authority now. You are not a victim of emotion. You are the one who issues the orders. You say now, not later. You say go, not wait. And when your body protests, you move anyway. That's how you reprogram your subconscious, through consistent obedience to your own voice. Every time you follow through, you carve a new pattern into your identity. You're teaching your brain, when I say something, it happens. And once your mind believes that self-trust is born, self-trust is the real currency of power, because without it, your word means nothing, not to others, not even to yourself. But when your word becomes law in your own mind, you no longer need external motivation. You become unstoppable because you know that your commands lead to results. Every morning, you must renew your declaration of discipline. Stand in front of the mirror and remind yourself, I am the commander of my life. My emotions obey me. My body obeys me. My mind obeys me. You don't need to shout it. You just need to believe it. Because belief reinforced by action becomes reality. Here's the truth. Most people miss self-command isn't about perfection. It's about correction. You will stumble. You will slip. You will delay. But the disciplined man never stays down. The moment he realizes he's off course, he gives himself a direct order, back on mission. And he moves, no guilt, no drama, just recalibration and execution. Weak men drown in self-pity. Strong men rebuild immediately. Because self-command is not emotional. It's logical. It's direct. It's non-negotiable. You have to treat your goals like laws. Unbreakable. Unquestionable. That's how self-command turns into identity. When you command yourself daily to train, to focus, to work, to finish, you stop seeing discipline as effort. It becomes instinct. At first, it feels mechanical. You'll force yourself out of bed, force yourself to work, force yourself to resist distraction. But over time, those repeated commands become automatic. That's when you know you've crossed the line from effort to embodiment. You no longer try to be disciplined. You are disciplined. Remember, Every act of self-command is a declaration of who you are. When you choose action over delay, you are saying, I lead my mind. When you choose focus over distraction, you are saying, I control my energy. When you choose consistency over comfort, you are saying, I am the master of myself. Each of these declarations builds a layer of armor around your will. Eventually, nothing external can penetrate it. Not boredom, not fatigue, not doubt. You still feel those emotions, but they'll no longer control you. You will observe them, command yourself, and act regardless. This is the power Napoleon Hill spoke of when he said, the man who masters himself can master anything. Because once you can give yourself an order and follow it instantly, you have the key to every success in life, business, health, relationships, wealth. All of them are built on the same foundation. Do what must be done, when it must be done, whether you feel like it or not. Self-command doesn't make you robotic. It makes you reliable, and reliability is the rarest form of strength in this world. Everyone starts with emotion. Few finish with execution. Everyone makes plans. Few follow orders. So starting today, train yourself like a warrior. Write your commands. Execute them. Refuse negotiation. Every time you obey your vision instead of your mood, you earn another stripe of self-respect. And soon, the voice of weakness will grow quiet. The mind that once resisted will now respond with precision. That's when you realize you're no longer fighting for discipline, you're leading with it. Because the man who commands himself doesn't wait for motivation. He doesn't ask for permission. He simply moves. And when that happens, life itself begins to move. For him, next. And we'll talk about how repetition, not inspiration, turns that command into unshakable momentum. The world is obsessed with excitement. Everyone wants the next burst of inspiration, the next spark, the next high. But success doesn't come from bursts, it comes from rhythm. Repetition is what separates the dreamers from the disciplined. It's what transforms random effort into lasting mastery. Inspiration is like lightning bright, powerful, but gone in a flash. Repetition is like the sunrise, steady, predictable, unstoppable. You don't rise by doing something once. You rise by doing it until it becomes who you are. Every legend, every champion, every success story you admire was born through repetition. Behind every overnight success are years of repeating the same simple actions while no one was watching. Discipline doesn't care if you're inspired. It only cares if you show up, because repetition doesn't need excitement. It needs commitment. Let's tell the truth. Most people avoid success as boring. It's not fireworks or constant motivation. It's doing the same work again and again until you can't get it wrong. The undisciplined chase stimulation, the disciplined chase precision. The undisciplined want to feel good before acting. The disciplined act until they feel good about mastery. When you rely on inspiration, you move like a wave up and down, fast and then gone. But repetition builds momentum. It compounds. Every day you repeat the right action. You strengthen the identity of someone who finishes what they start. The body obeys repetition. The mind follows patterns. When you repeat something long enough, your subconscious begins to expect it. You no longer need motivation to act. Action becomes your default. That's the point where discipline transforms into habit, and habit transforms into identity. Think about it. You don't need motivation to brush your teeth. Why? because you've done it every day for years. It's automatic. The goal is to make your priorities as automatic as brushing your teeth, to make showing up non-negotiable, to make excellence a reflex. But repetition doesn't mean mindless routine. It means intentional refinement. Each time you repeat, you're not just doing the same, you're doing it better. You're sharpening your timing, your control, your awareness. You're building precision under pressure. Repetition is the sculptor of greatness. Each small act of consistency chisels away weakness. Each repeated effort engraves resilience into your character. Every time you push through boredom or fatigue, you reinforce your willpower. Most people never get this far. They confuse boredom with failure. The moment things feel dull, they assume the process isn't working and they quit. But boredom is the gatekeeper of mastery. The one who stays consistent through the dull moments becomes unstoppable. You cannot fall in love with success if you hate repetition, because repetition is success. Motivation will tell you to work hard today. Discipline will make you work hard every day. Motivation will make you sprint. Discipline will teach you to run the marathon. The average man says, "I'll do it when I feel like it." The disciplined man says, "I'll do it until it feels right." And there's a world of difference between the two. Every great boxer throws the same punch thousands of times. Every pianist plays the same scale endlessly. Every builder lays the same kind of brick, one after another, until the masterpiece stands tall. The process is monotonous, but mastery lives in monotony. When repetition becomes your teacher, results become inevitable. You might fail on your first try. You might stumble on the 10th, but every repetition makes you stronger. Every attempt removes hesitation. Every cycle of effort builds confidence. Here's the paradox. Repetition feels slow, but it's the fastest path to transformation. The more you repeat, the less friction you face. You don't need to think, you just execute. The act becomes effortless, almost instinctive. That's what people call flow. But flow is not magic. It's just the reward of thousands of disciplined repetitions. This is why the strong win. They don't chase emotion. They chase consistency. They don't wait to be inspired. They build momentum through habit. They don't aim to be great once. They aim to be consistent always. When you repeat a habit long enough, it stops being effort. It becomes identity. You're no longer trying to be disciplined. You simply are. Repetition is how you reprogram your subconscious mind for success. Each time you follow through, your brain takes note. This is who I am now. And once identity catches up, discipline becomes effortless. You stop fighting for consistency, because consistency becomes who you are. This is how athletes train, how artists grow, how leaders rise through the same quiet, unseen repetitions while the world sleeps, through thousands of invisible acts of effort that the public never applauds. If you can fall in love with repetition, you can build anything, because repetition turns action into instinct and instinct into power. Ask yourself, what small action done every day he would change your life? If you repeated it for a year, write it down, commit to it, and promise yourself, no matter how I feel, I will repeat this daily. That's not motivation talking, that's command. And soon, the very thing you once had to force yourself to do will become the thing you can't imagine skipping. Because repetition doesn't just build skill, it builds you. Every repeated act of discipline carves a stronger, clearer, more powerful version of yourself. And when that version takes over, when your habits align with your vision, nothing can stop your momentum. That's how the disciplined rise while everyone else drifts. They repeat what works long after the excitement fades. They don't need to feel ready, they just need to remember the command. Do it again. Procrastination is the silent assassin of potential. It doesn't destroy you all at once, it erodes you slowly. One delayed task. One postponed goal. One, "I'll do it later," whispered too many times. And suddenly a year has passed. The dream hasn't died. It's been quietly suffocated by hesitation. You felt it before. The hesitation that creeps in right before you start. You stare at the task. You overthink. You analyze. You scroll. Your mind starts building excuses. "I'll start after lunch. I need to be in the right mindset. Maybe tomorrow will be better." That voice sounds reasonable, even logical, but it's a trap. Procrastination isn't laziness, it's fear, wearing a polite mask, fear of failure, fear of discomfort, fear of imperfection. The mind doesn't want to feel pain, so it tricks you into waiting. But here's the truth. The pain of starting is always smaller than the pain of staying stuck. Your emotions are faster than your logic. Within seconds, they can talk you out of action. That's why you need a counterattack, something immediate, powerful, and impossible to debate. That's where the 90-second rule comes in. It's simple, but it's lethal to procrastination. The moment you catch yourself hesitating, you have 90 seconds to act, not 10 minutes, not after you feel ready. 90 seconds. In those 90 seconds, you don't think, you move, you start, you take the smallest possible action toward the goal. Open the document, tee your shoes, write the first line, make the call, start the timer. Because once you start, the resistance dies. Action kills hesitation faster than thought ever could. The 90-second rule isn't about finishing. It's about beginning. Once you begin, momentum takes over. The brain shifts from defense to engagement. What felt impossible a minute ago becomes manageable. The task you were avoiding suddenly starts to flow. Think about it. How many times have you dreaded doing something only to realize once you started, it wasn't that bad? That's because resistance only exists before action. Once you're in motion, it disappears. The lazy mind always exaggerates how hard something will be. But discipline knows that difficulty dissolves through movement. The longer you wait, the stronger the resistance grows. The faster you act, the weaker it becomes. So when hesitation hits, don't negotiate. Don't analyze. Don't explain. Just say to yourself, 90 seconds. Move. Stand up. Open the laptop. Grab the weights. Make the call. Small motion. Big momentum. Your goal isn't to feel ready. It's to get moving before the feeling of resistance wins. Because the first 90 seconds decide whether your day belongs to discipline or to delay. You'll notice something fascinating once you start practicing this. The more you act within that window, the quieter the voice of procrastination becomes. It loses credibility. It stops arguing because every time you move quickly, you train your brain to associate hesitation with action, not avoidance. You're rewiring your mind at a subconscious level. Before long, starting becomes automatic. You won't even think about it, you'll just do it. And that's the essence of discipline, acting before emotion interferes. This is the same principle soldiers use in the military. There's no debate, no delay, no overthinking. Orders are given. Action follows. It's not emotional, it's mechanical, because emotion loves delay, but execution loves immediacy. Here's what most people get wrong. They think discipline means pushing through giant tasks, but real discipline begins in the smallest choices. The strength to start for just 2 minutes is stronger than the intention to finish perfectly. Perfection is the enemy of action. The disciplined man doesn't wait for perfect. He just starts. In those first 90 seconds, you break the spell of hesitation. You shift from victim to commander. You remind yourself that your mind obeys you, not the other way around. So from now on, every time your mind says, later, reply instantly with movement. When it says, I'm not ready, reply with, I'll start anyway. When it says, it's not the right time, reply with, the time is now. That's how you win the small battles that shape your destiny. Here's a truth. Most never realize procrastination doesn't destroy you today. It destroys the version of you that could have existed tomorrow. Every time you delay, you're voting against your future self. But every time you act, you're casting a vote for who you want to become. You're either building discipline or building excuses. There's no middle ground. The next time you catch yourself hesitating, remember the rule. 90 seconds. No thought, just motion. The first step is always the hardest, but it's also the one that changes everything. Because the moment you move, resistance breaks, energy rises, and purpose takes over. Discipline isn't about forcing yourself to do everything perfectly. It's about forcing yourself to begin, because once you begin, discipline does the rest. Start small. Start now. Start before you feel ready. That's how you end procrastination. And once you master this rule, you'll never fear starting again, because the start will always belong to you. Momentum is the hidden force behind every disciplined person you admire. It's what makes consistency feel effortless. It's the silent engine that turns small actions into unstoppable movement. Once you have momentum, you don't fight your habits, they carry you. But when you lose it, even simple tasks feel heavy. So here's the truth. Discipline doesn't start in the middle of the day when you're tired, distracted, and surrounded by noise. It starts the moment you wake up. The first hour of your morning determines the tone of your entire day. You either take command of it or it takes command of you. If you win the morning, you win the day. If you lose it, you spend the rest of your day catching up to your own chaos. Let's be clear. Your morning is not just a routine, it's a ritual. It's your first battle of the day. And if you conquer it, every other decision becomes easier. But most people wake up like amateurs. The alarm goes off, they hit snooze. That single act of surrender tells the brain, my comfort matters more than my commitment. It's a micro decision, but it shapes everything, because how you do the small things is how you'll do the big things. The disciplined mind treats the first hour as sacred ground. No distractions, no negotiation, only order, energy, and movement. Let me introduce you to a system I call the STEEL, morning. It's simple, powerful, and non-negotiable. Start your day in stillness. No phone, no noisy. Just breathe, visualize, and align. Ask yourself, what's the one thing that matters most today? That 5 minutes of mental clarity sets the compass for the next 16 hours. Train, move your body. It doesn't matter how, just move. Exercise doesn't just strengthen your muscles, it sharpens your mind. Physical movement tells your brain, we're alive, we're in command. You'll feel a surge of focus that caffeine can't match. Execute. Choose the hardest or most important task of the day and finish it early. That single victory builds psychological momentum. You teach your brain, I finish what I start. And once that message is programmed, procrastination loses its power. Eliminate before the day starts. Identify one thing that tends to derail your focus and cut it out. It could be notifications, clutter, unnecessary meetings, or idle conversations. Every distraction you remove adds horsepower to your discipline. Log 3 lines of reflection at the end of your morning block. Write down 3 short notes. 1, what did I do right? 2, what will I improve tomorrow? 3, one thing I'm grateful for. That small ritual locks your progress into memory. You reinforce discipline not just through action, but through awareness. This simple system works because it attacks chaos before it begins. It replaces randomness with rhythm, reaction with intention. It turns your morning from an accident into an act of power. Here's the secret. Discipline isn't built in heroic moments, it's built in predictable ones. The more predictable your mornings, the more powerful your days. Every morning you follow this system, you strengthen the neural pattern of control. You train your subconscious to obey command instead of comfort. When you wake up and follow through, you're not just completing tasks, you're building identity. You're proving to yourself again and again that your actions align with your vision. Think of momentum like gravity. Once it's in motion, it pulls everything else along. A disciplined morning creates disciplined afternoons, disciplined evenings, and eventually a disciplined life. But here's what kills momentum inconsistency. Skipping one morning turns into 2, then 3. Suddenly, the habit collapses. That's why you must treat your morning ritual as sacred. Protect it like your life depends on it, because in a way, it does. Your future depends on how you start your day. You don't need to overhaul your life overnight. Just own the first hour, make it yours. Command it, and the rest of the day will fall into order. The undisciplined say, I'll see how I feel. The disciplined say, I already decided. When your morning is structured, you don't wake up reacting to life, you wake up directing it. That's when you move from living by emotion to living by design. Remember, this discipline isn't about intensity, it's about rhythm. A man who is consistent 70% of the time will beat the man who's inspired 100% for 1 week. If you want to change your life, start by mastering the morning, not with perfection, but with persistence. Because when you win the morning, you win the momentum. And when you win the momentum, you win the war. Now that you've learned how to create unstoppable mornings, it's time to master the most important form of discipline, not over your schedule, but over your emotions. Every battle begins in the mind, and the hardest war you will ever fight is not against failure, fear, or fatigue. It's against your own emotions. Your emotions are powerful. They can inspire greatness or destroy everything you've built. They can lift you into discipline or drown you in doubt. That's why true mastery in life begins with emotional control, not suppression. But leadership, most people let their feelings drive their decisions. They wait to feel motivated before acting. They wait to feel confident before starting. They wait to feel calm before speaking. And that's why they stay stuck. Because emotion is temporary, it shifts like the wind. You cannot build a lasting life on unstable ground. Discipline means this: you act regardless of emotion. You move whether you feel ready or not. You show up even when you're tired. You follow through even when the excitement fades. That's emotional leadership. When you lead your emotions, you become unstoppable. When you follow them, you become unpredictable. Your emotions will whisper lies to you. They'll say, you need more rest when you need more effort. They'll say, you're not good enough when you're just getting started. They'll say, you're overwhelmed when all you really are is uncomfortable. Never mistake discomfort for danger. Discomfort means growth. It means you're expanding. It means you're pushing beyond the limits that kept you ordinary. Emotional discipline is the art of recognizing those feelings and acting anyway. You don't ignore them. You interpret them. You learn to see fear as information, not intimidation. You see doubt as data, not defeat. You see stress as a sign that you're being refined, not ruined. Imagine your mind as a ship. Your emotions are the waves, sometimes calm, sometimes violent. But discipline is the captain. You can't control the sea, but you can always control the direction of the ship. The weak man reacts to every wave. The strong man holds the wheel steady. That steadiness, that calmness in the storm is the mark of true power. You've seen it before. The athlete who stays composed under pressure, the leader who speaks clearly when others panic, the builder who keeps working when the world collapses around him. That's not luck. That's not personality. That's training, emotional training. When you master emotional discipline, you don't lose passion, you refine it. You don't silence your fire, you direct it. Anger becomes energy. Fear becomes focus. Pressure becomes fuel. You stop being a slave to your moods and become the master of your movements. Here's a truth. Most people avoid your emotions are servants, not masters. They're tools, not commands. You decide when to listen and when to lead. When your mind says, I don't feel like it, answer with, that's fine, we're doing it anyway. When your fear says, what if I fail, reply, then I'll learn and go again. When your doubt says, you're not ready, remind it, no one ever is. That's how you train your emotions to obey your vision. It doesn't happen overnight. It happens through repetition, through doing the hard thing precisely when you feel weakest. Each time you act in defiance of your feelings, you build strength, you rewire your subconscious mind to respond to command instead of comfort. Soon, you'll notice something incredible. The emotions that once controlled you will start to serve you. You'll use fear as fuel. You'll use stress as sharpening edge. You'll use discomfort as direction. That's emotional alchemy, turning weakness into power. And once you reach that level, the world can't touch you. You'll walk through storms with peace in your chest, You'll face chaos with clarity in your eyes. You lead not because you feel strong, but because you decide to be. Remember this, every time you act against your emotions, you strengthen your character. Every time you obey them, you weaken your will. Emotional discipline isn't about becoming cold, it's about becoming calm. It's about thinking clearly when everyone else drowns in confusion. It's about being the eye of the storm still, centered and focused, because when your emotions serve your mission instead of sabotaging it, you become truly dangerous, unshakable, unstoppable, unmoved by noise, guided only by purpose. And that's when the world begins to follow your lead. Every person who ever failed to reach their potential lost the same war, not against the world, not against circumstance, but against their own excuses. Excuses are the lies we tell ourselves to stay comfortable. They sound intelligent, reasonable, even protective, but they are the enemy of every dream you have. Excuses are not built from weakness, they're built from fear. Fear of failing, fear of judgment, fear of change. Your mind creates them as armor to avoid pain, but that same armor becomes your prison. Let's be honest, you already know what needs to be done. You know the habits, the goals, the actions that could change your life. But between knowing and doing stands a voice whispering every reason why now isn't the time. I don't have enough time. I'm not ready yet. I don't have the right connections. I'll start when things settle down. These sentences sound harmless, but they are poison. Every time you repeat them, you give power to hesitation and weakness. You teach your mind that excuses are acceptable, and your potential begins to rot quietly beneath comfort. The truth is, no one is coming to save you. No one is going to wake you up, hand you the plan, or take the first step for you. You must destroy the excuses before they destroy you. Excuses have one goal: to keep you safe. But what they never tell you is that safe and stuck are the same thing. You can't grow while protecting your comfort zone. You can't evolve while defending your limitations. Every time you say, I can't, what you're really saying is, I won't, because deep down, you know that discipline could make it possible, but it would require effort, and effort, for the undisciplined mind, feels like pain. So here's how to win this war. Face your excuses out loud. Don't ignore them. Expose them. Write them down. Every single one. I don't have time. I'm too tired. I don't know where to start. Then, for each excuse, write the truth beneath it. I don't have time becomes I waste time. I'm too tired becomes I've stopped managing my energy. I don't know where to start becomes I'm afraid to fail. See the difference? The truth always reveals control. Excuses hide it. Once you expose your excuses, they lose their power, because the mind can't fix what it refuses to face. Every great achiever you admire once had the same excuses, but they made a choice. They stopped listening to the voice of limitation and started listening to the voice of discipline. Napoleon Hill wrote, "You are the master of your fate, the captain of your soul." That's not poetry, that's law. It means you hold the power to command your thoughts, your habits, and your destiny. But you can't command what you constantly excuse. Excuses are like rust. They eat away at your confidence silently. You won't notice the damage right away. But one day, you look back and realize years have passed and all you've collected are reasons instead of results. So the next time your mind starts crafting excuses, interrupt it. Ask one question. Is this true? Or is this comfort talking? 9 times out of 10, it's comfort. The disciplined mind doesn't negotiate with comfort, it challenges it. Here's a mental shift that will change everything. Instead of saying, I can't because, start saying, I will even though. I will show up even though I'm tired. I will work even though I'm afraid. I will keep going even though I don't see results yet. That single shift transforms your language from victimhood to victory. Excuses depend on emotion. Discipline depends on commitment. And commitment doesn't need approval, motivation, or perfect timing. It only needs decision. The next time you catch yourself making an excuse, remember this. Every excuse is a brick in the wall between you and your potential. You can keep building the wall, or you can tear it down. One truth at a time. But tearing it down requires courage. It requires you to face uncomfortable truths about your habits, your fears, and your self-talk. Most people won't do it. They'd rather defend their excuses than destroy them. But not you. Not if you want to rise. Because excuses don't just steal success, they steal identity. They make you forget that you were born capable, powerful, and adaptable. You were built to overcome, but excuses convince you to surrender before the fight even begins. So make a declaration. From this day forward, I reject excuses. I reject the stories that limit me. I reject the idea that I must feel ready before I act. From now on, I move, even when it's inconvenient. You will fall, you will stumble, but the moment you stop blaming and start owning, you step into full power. Responsibility is the death of excuses and the birth of growth. Every time you choose responsibility over justification, you evolve. You tell your subconscious mind, I'm in charge. You shift from a passive thinker to an active creator. That's the mindset that builds wealth. That's the mindset that builds leaders. Excuses are the language of the average. Ownership is the language of the extraordinary. And the extraordinary are not born, they're built. One honest decision at a time. So today, make this choice. No more lies. No more waiting. No more someday. You don't need a perfect plan, you need perfect commitment. Because once you destroy your excuses, discipline takes the throne. And when discipline rules your life, success no longer becomes a question of if, but when. Discipline is not just about control, it's about energy. It's the fuel that keeps your fire alive when motivation burns out, because no matter how ambitious you are, there will be days when you feel drained, uninspired, and disconnected from your vision. Those are the moments that separate the amateurs from the masters. Anyone can perform when they're excited, but only the disciplined can perform when they're exhausted. The truth is, discipline creates energy. The more you act, the more momentum you build. The more momentum you build, the more energy you have. Action fuels emotion. Waiting drains it. Have you noticed that the hardest part of any task is simply starting? Once you begin, something shifts. You feel alert, focused, alive. That's not coincidence, that's biology. Movement activates your brain. Progress releases dopamine. And dopamine creates energy. That's why lazy people always feel tired, not because they lack energy, but because they lack movement. Stagnation drains power faster than work ever could. The disciplined understand this. They don't wait for energy, they generate it. They know that if they act first, the feeling will follow. They don't ask, "Do I feel like it?" They ask, "What will give me energy right now?" And the answer is always action. When you move, you shift your chemistry. When you act, you command your state. When you decide, you create direction. And direction gives power. But to sustain this kind of energy, you need alignment, mental, physical, and emotional. Let's break that down. One, mental alignment. Focus on one mission. Scattered focus creates scattered energy. Every time you chase multiple goals, your power fragments. Discipline means choosing one clear direction and giving it your full attention. Your mind is like light. Diffuse it. And it warms. Focus it. And it burns through steel. Each morning, remind yourself of your mission. One sentence. One target. One focus. You'll feel your energy sharpen instantly. 2. Physical alignment. Protect your body. Your body is the engine that carries your discipline. Feed it well. Rest it right. Move it daily. Sleep is not laziness, it's recovery. Nutrition is not restriction, it's fuel. The undisciplined abuse their bodies and call it grind. The disciplined honor their bodies and call it longevity. Energy doesn't come from caffeine or hype. It comes from oxygen, blood flow, hydration, sunlight, and clean fuel. You can't think like a winner if your body runs like a wreck. 3. Emotional alignment. Guard your energy from people. Energy is contagious. You absorb it from the people you allow into your space. Surround yourself with the pessimistic, the lazy, and the negative, and you'll start mirroring their vibration. But surround yourself with builders, dreamers, and disciplined minds, and you'll rise to their level. Protect your energy like your life depends on it, because it does. Remember, so your environment either multiplies your fire or extinguishes it. The disciplined don't fight every battle they choose. The ones that keep their energy clean, they know that saying no is not rejection, it's protection. When your energy is aligned, discipline feels natural. It's not forced, it's flow. You wake up ready. You work with rhythm. You rest with purpose. You stop burning out because you've stopped fighting yourself. And here's the paradox. When you protect your energy, you can push harder than ever before because your fire doesn't die halfway. But the secret most people miss is spiritual energy. You must believe in something bigger than your task, a mission, a vision, a reason. Discipline fueled by ego burns out fast. Discipline fueled by purpose burns forever. Ask yourself, why am I doing this? If the answer only serves your comfort or pride, you'll quit when the challenge comes. But if it serves a deeper purpose growth, service, contribution, no obstacle can break you. Purpose gives power to persistence. When your actions align with your mission, if you stop fighting for motivation, you act out of devotion. And devotion never runs out of fuel. Think of it like this. Motivation is a spark. Discipline is the flame. But purpose is the oxygen that keeps it burning. So if your energy ever fades, don't ask, how can I feel motivated again? Ask, what am I doing this for? Reconnect with that reason. And you'll feel the fire return. Every great achiever runs on this same formula. Purpose creates energy. Énergie soudaine, discipline, Discipline creates results. Results reinforce purpose. It's a perfect loop, a self-sustaining cycle of power. If you want unbreakable discipline, you must learn to feed this loop daily. Revisit your vision. Move your body. Protect your energy. Speak with intention. And remember, you are not tired. You're just unaligned. Energy doesn't vanish. It just hides behind clutter, doubt, and distraction. Remove them, and your natural power returns. So from this moment on, you promise yourself you will stop waiting for energy. You will start creating it through action, through focus, through alignment. Because discipline isn't meant to drain you, it's meant to awaken you. Every act of control over your mind and body is an act of self-creation. The more you live in alignment, the less you'll need to force yourself. You'll become a magnet for strength, clarity, and results. That's the energy of discipline, not a burst, but a current. And once you learn to generate it, nothing can stop you. There comes a moment in every person's journey when discipline stops being something you do and starts becoming who you are. That's the ultimate transformation. At first, discipline feels like resistance. It feels heavy. Every action feels forced, every routine a battle. But over time, through repetition, something begins to shift deep inside you. The pain of discipline fades, and in its place grows a sense of peace, a quiet pride that comes from alignment. This is the point where discipline becomes identity. Most people never reach it because they quit before the transformation completes. They think discipline is only about grinding, pushing, suffering. But that's only the initiation, the doorway. Beyond it lies freedom. Because when you become disciplined, you no longer wake up trying to act right. You simply do. You no longer argue with yourself about what needs to be done. You just begin. You no longer chase motivation. You are the motivation. Discipline is not about punishment. It's about evolution. It's about becoming the kind of person who can trust themselves when your words and actions are one, when your habits reflect your values, when your choices honor your vision. That's integrity. And integrity is power. At this stage, discipline no longer feels like control. It feels like peace. You don't fight against your emotions because they're no longer your enemy. You don't struggle with consistency because it's now your nature. You've rewired your mind, retrained your body, and rebuilt your character. This transformation happens silently. One day, you wake up and realize you no longer need to convince yourself to follow through. You don't have to count the days or promise yourself rewards. You simply live in alignment with your mission. You become the kind of person who does what they said they would do long after the feeling that made them say it has faded. That's not a habit. That's identity. Think of it like building a fire. At first, you must gather wood, strike sparks, and feed the flame carefully. But once the fire grows strong, it sustains itself. It burns through the night. That's what discipline becomes, self-sustaining energy. So how do you reach this level? How do you turn discipline into identity? It begins with one simple shift. Stop saying, I'm trying to be disciplined. Start saying, I am disciplined. Language shapes identity. Every word you speak programs your subconscious mind. When you say, I'm trying, you give yourself an escape route. You tell your mind it's okay to fail. But when you say, I am. You close that door. You lock in the truth. Affirmation becomes activation. From there, every small action reinforces the identity you've claimed. Each time you wake up early, your mind records. This is what disciplined people do. Each time you follow through, your subconscious notes. We finish what we start. Each time you choose focus over distraction, your self-image strengthens. I am in control. Soon, you stop needing discipline to act because the identity of a disciplined person automatically drives your behavior. This is how the world's highest performers operate. They don't rely on mood. They don't rely on hype. They rely on who they are. A runner doesn't wake up and decide whether they'll train. They're a runner, so they run. An artist doesn't wait to feel creative. They're an artist, so they create. A disciplined person doesn't debate action. They act. Identity makes consistency effortless. But here's the secret. Identity is not found. It's built. Brick by brick. Habit by habit. Promessa by promessa. You sculpt it every time you keep your word. You strengthen it every time you resist the easy path. You become it every time you act in alignment with your highest self. It's a quiet process. No one applauds you while you're doing it. But one day, they'll look at your results and call it discipline. You'll know it wasn't discipline anymore. It was simply you. Becoming disciplined is the ultimate freedom. You no longer need to force yourself to do what's right because you no longer desire what's wrong. You stop chasing balance, you live in it. You stop seeking motivation, you radiate it. The man who becomes disciplined becomes untouchable because he can be trusted with his own power. He doesn't crumble under pressure. He doesn't drift under emotion. His life moves with precision, not perfection, but purpose. Understand this. Discipline is not a phase. It's not a temporary program. It's a rebirth. When you become disciplined, your world transforms. Procrastination looses, meaning fear becomes a friend. Hard work turns into a form of meditation because now every action flows from identity, not obligation. You're no longer fighting for discipline, you're living as it. And that's when the true rewards of life appear: peace, power, prosperity, and purpose, not because you forced them, but because you became the kind of person who naturally attracts them. So stop chasing results. Start building identity. Because when your character becomes discipline itself, success is not something you chase, it's something you magnetize. There's a point where success stops being about what you achieve and starts being about who you become in the process. Because discipline, when practiced long enough, leaves behind more than results. It leaves behind a legacy. A disciplined life is not measured by trophies, titles, or applause. It's measured by consistency, character, and contribution, the invisible pillars that hold everything else together. When you master discipline, you don't just build wealth or power, you build weight. Your presence carries substance. Your word carries force. And your actions echo far beyond your lifetime. Discipline, at its highest level, is not about control. It's about creation. You're creating a structure within yourself so solid that chaos can't shake it. You're designing a standard so high that mediocrity can't touch it. You're programming a rhythm into your daily existence that makes excellence inevitable. That's how legacies are built, not in a moment of brilliance, but in years of obedience to the small things, the small choices, the small disciplines, the small moments of resistance you win every day. Because success doesn't come from one heroic act, it comes from thousands of quiet victories that no one sees. When others hit snooze, you rise. When others talk, you execute. When others complain, you focus. And over time, those choices become your legend. You see, discipline doesn't only transform your life, it transforms everyone connected to you. Your family, your team, and your community. They all rise to meet your standard. You become a living example of what's possible. You give others permission to elevate themselves just by existing with excellence. That's the invisible power of discipline. It multiplies itself through influence. People may not remember every word you say, but they'll never forget how your consistency made them feel. Safe, inspired, challenged, awake. When you live with discipline, you emit certainty in a world full of chaos. And that certainty attracts people, opportunity, and respect, not because you demand it, but because you embody it. There is a magnetic quality to disciplined energy. When you walk into a room, people feel the difference. You don't have to speak loudly or brag about your achievements. Your posture, your calm, your focus. They all communicate one thing: I'm in command. That is the aura of a man who has mastered himself, and self-mastery is the rarest form of power on earth. Anyone can control others. Few can control themselves. But the moment you do, the game changes. You move from reacting to creating, from chasing to attracting, from surviving to shaping destiny. That's what makes discipline sacred. It's the path from ordinary existence to extraordinary impact. But here's the final truth. Discipline is not meant to end with you. You're not just here to build a routine, you're here to build a ripple. The habits you form, the example you set, the standard you raise, all of it becomes a beacon for others searching for direction. You become a lighthouse in a stormy sea, a signal to every person still struggling in chaos. That structure is freedom. So, ask yourself, what do I want my discipline to say about me when I'm gone? Do I want it to whisper, "He worked hard," or do I want it to thunder, "He lived with purpose"? Because that's what real success sounds like. Not noise, but impact. Not popularity, but permanence. Every day you practice discipline. You're engraving your name into time, not on a plaque, but in people's memory. They'll remember how you moved, how you stayed consistent when everyone else quit, how you never needed to announce your greatness, because your work made it obvious. That's the man discipline builds: quiet, focused, relentless, and free. But never forget, this legacy doesn't begin in the grand moments. It begins in the morning, when the alarm rings and you rise. It begins when you choose focus over distraction, purpose over comfort, progress over perfection. It begins every time you say, "I'll do it anyway," because that's what separates the discipline from the drifter's repetition. 1,000 small wins that, over time, carve an unshakable foundation of power. And here's the most beautiful part. When discipline becomes who you are, peace follows naturally. You stop fighting yourself. You stop negotiating with your goals. You stop chasing validation, because you've already earned your own respect. That's the highest form of wealth, self-respect. And it can't be bought. It must be built. So build it, brick by brick, day by day, through effort, through sacrifice, through consistency, And one day, when the noise fades and the world grows quiet, you'll look back and realize you didn't just stay disciplined. You became a leader. You became a builder. You became a legacy. Remember, the world doesn't reward the most talented. It rewards the most consistent. Talent may open the door, but only discipline keeps it open. So keep your vision high, your standards higher, and your actions higher still. Every moment of self-control today becomes a monument of strength tomorrow. Because the disciplined don't just survive time, they define it. And when your story is told, let it be said, he lived with focus. He walked with purpose. He mastered himself. And through that mastery, he changed everything. That is the legacy of discipline. If you've made it this far, understand this truth. You already have everything you need to become unstoppable. Discipline isn't something you were born without. It's something you've simply forgotten how to command. And now, it's time to remember who you are. From this moment on, don't just talk about your goals, enforce them. Don't just wish for better habits, embody them. Don't just wait for motivation, move without it. Because the world doesn't need more dreamers. It needs more doers. It needs more men and women who can look temptation in the eye and say, not today. Discipline is not about perfection. It's about alignment between what you think, what you say, and what you do. It's about showing up every single day, even when no one claps, even when no one notices, because you notice every act of discipline is a vote for your future self. Every moment you resist distraction, you sculpt your destiny. Every choice to stay focused is a declaration that you are no longer ruled by weakness, emotion, or comfort. That's how legacies are built: in silence, in repetition, in consistency. So, from today forward, speak to yourself with conviction. Say, I am disciplined. I am consistent. I am unbreakable. And then prove it through your actions. Wake up tomorrow and conquer your morning. Build structure before the world gives you chaos. Do the work no one wants to do, because that's where power hides. And never forget, the man who controls himself controls his future. If this message spoke to your spirit, if it reignited the fire you once had, then don't let it fade. Rewatch this. Revisit it. Reprogram your mind daily until discipline becomes your natural state. And remember, this is just the beginning. Because when you live with discipline, you don't just build success, you become success. Now it's your turn. Go and command your life. Livi as disciplini, lead as legacy. And watch the universe bow to your consistency. If this message moved you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe to Think Rich Mindset Hub and join thousands of others mastering the Napoleon Hill principles that build wealth, focus, and purpose. Because success isn't waiting for you, it's responding to you. And starting today, it responds to discipline